You're not broken. You're not invisible. You're just sending signals you don't realize, and life is listening. Owen Hermstring's laws reveal the truth behind every delay, every silence, every unanswered prayer. What's blocking you isn't out there. It's energetic, and it's time to clear the path. There's a quiet, invisible difference between asking and commanding, between pleading for something to come and embodying the certainty that it already belongs to you. Owen Hermstring opens this truth early in The Law Behind the Laws when he writes, "The universe does not respond to hope. It responds to signal, and your signal is not what you think, it's what you are." That line alone could break thousands of cycles. You say you've been trying to attract something, a relationship, a breakthrough, a new life, but time keeps passing and it feels like nothing changes. You start to wonder if something's broken in you. But what if the problem isn't your desire, but your energy behind it? Desire is not wrong. In fact, desire is sacred. It's the spark of expansion. The problem begins when desire slips into begging. That shift can happen silently. You start with a wish, but when it doesn't show up, fear enters, then frustration, then obsession. Soon, you're not living in alignment anymore. You're living in lack mode. And Hermstring teaches us that lack attracts more lack, because lack has a specific frequency. It's the frequency of I don't have, and that's the signal your body, your emotions, and your behavior begin to broadcast every single day. Even if your words are positive, even if you're doing affirmations or visualizing, you can't fake vibration. You can't mask energy. The universe doesn't hear what you say, it hears what you feel when you're saying it. A person can stand in front of a mirror and declare, "I am powerful," and yet behind their eyes a silent scream begs to be seen, to be validated, to be chosen. That scream is the real prayer. That scream is what life responds to. This is why Hermstring insists that the first law is not visualization, it's embodiment. You must become what you seek. If you want to attract love, you have to be love, not someone desperate for it. If you want abundance, you must walk like someone who trusts they are supported. This doesn't mean pretending. It doesn't mean acting rich or confident or divine. It means removing the energy of pleading from your aura, because that energy suffocates your signal. It tells the universe, "I'm afraid, I'm small. I need this thing to be whole." But the law behind the laws can only respond to wholeness, not need. Think about it. Have you ever walked into a room and felt someone's energy pulling at you, even when they said nothing? It's the same energetically. When your field is needy, even the things you want most can feel repelled by you, not because you don't deserve them, but because you don't believe you already do. Hermstring says it clearly. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are willing to embody without proof. Most people wait for proof before they believe. They wait for signs before they act. But the universal law flips the order. It asks you to become the signal first. Then reality rearranges. This is not easy, especially when you've been waiting for something for months or even years. It's tempting to slip into the belief that maybe you're cursed. Maybe it's not your time. Maybe it's never going to happen. But those thoughts are not innocent. They are energetic codes, and each one delays the very thing you seek. The moment you believe you are separate from what you desire, you start vibrating in contradiction. And contradiction scrambles your field. The shift begins when you stop asking life to notice you. You stop asking people to validate you. You stop begging destiny to pick you. Instead, you breathe, you remember, you drop into the truth that you were never required to chase anything. The version of you that is already magnetic, already aligned, already worthy, she's not far away. She's just buried beneath layers of fear, scarcity, and conditioning, but she's waiting to be remembered. This is why your energy must shift from pleading to presence, not arrogance, not force, just unshakable presence. That quiet, dignified frequency that whispers, "I already am." It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it just is. And that is the signal that moves mountains. You believe you're ready. You tell yourself you've moved on. You've read the books, spoken the affirmations, maybe even decluttered your physical space to make room for what you want, and yet nothing shifts. It's like trying to shout into the wind. Your voice is clear, but the energy is scattered. In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen Hermstring explains this phenomenon with rare clarity. The field never forgets what the mind tries to suppress. If an old wound still lives in your nervous system, it echoes in your frequency. And that's when it starts making sense. You're not just being ignored by life, you're being mirrored by it. Every experience you've lived, especially the ones you never fully processed, leaves an energetic residue. Betrayal, shame, guilt, rejection. They don't just disappear because you moved on logically. They linger in your field, like an invisible software still running in the background, consuming your bandwidth. And no matter how beautifully you paint over the surface, if the foundation is fractured, the energy will leak. That leak is why you keep attracting versions of the past dressed up as something new. You can be sitting across from a new person, starting a new job, visualizing a new life, and still carry the imprint of a moment when you felt unseen, unworthy, or unwanted. And because energy seeks coherence, it keeps delivering you situations that match what's unresolved, not what's ideal. This is one of the hardest truths Hermstring asks us to accept. If your future doesn't arrive, it's because your past is still speaking louder than your signal. It's not a punishment, it's a prompt. The universe is not rejecting you, it's asking you to clear the channel. You don't need to remember every trauma, you don't have to dig through every memory, but you do have to feel what you've buried. Emotions are energy in motion, and when they're frozen, they form blocks. They slow the current. They distort the message. Sometimes it's subtle. A child version of you might still believe love must be earned, so even now you overperform, hoping to be chosen. Or maybe part of you still fears success because of how others responded to your light in the past, so you self-sabotage every time things start going well, not because you're broken, but because your frequency is still anchored in a version of reality that no longer matches your conscious desire. This anchoring is often unconscious. That's why you can't willpower your way out of it. You can't just push harder. In fact, Owen warns that force only deepens the resistance. Whatever is unhealed will fight to survive. It will wear the mask of your identity until you choose to release it. And release doesn't happen through struggle. It happens through awareness and presence, through gently noticing where you've been repeating a pattern, speaking from an old wound, or expecting rejection before it arrives. Healing the old frequencies is not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you were before the pain taught you to shrink. It's about reclaiming your signal, the clear, powerful, aligned energy that once moved freely through you. That version of you never stopped existing. She was just muted by survival. And now that you're no longer in survival mode, it's time to choose differently. Not perfectly, just honestly. This is the real inner work, not surface-level positivity. Not bypassing the discomfort, but sitting with the parts of you that you've labeled too messy, too soft, too much, because when you finally integrate those parts, your field becomes whole again. And when your field is whole, the signal is unmistakable. What blocks you is not fate. It's not lack of talent or timing. It's the weight of what you've carried without realizing it. But the moment you stop resisting that truth, the moment you allow the old frequency to dissolve in the light of your awareness, you create space. And space is sacred. It's the womb of manifestation. It's the place where what you desire can finally hear you, because you're no longer broadcasting fear. You're broadcasting clarity. You wake up in the morning and speak the words out loud. I deserve better. You say you're ready to receive. You declare that you've done the inner work, that you're aligned with your vision, that the life you want is just around the corner. But deep down, in the quiet space beneath your thoughts, something whispers back. Are you sure? That whisper is what Hermstring calls the split self, the fracture between who you say you are and who you actually believe yourself to be. And it is that fracture that delays, distorts, or denies what you're trying to attract. In The Law Behind the Laws, Owen writes, "There can be no energetic arrival until there is identity agreement. You cannot receive what contradicts your self-image." It's a piercing truth. Most people are not manifesting from alignment, they are manifesting from contradiction. On the surface, they hold the image of the life they want, but at the subconscious level, they are still tethered to the version of themselves that was abandoned, dismissed, overlooked, or doubted. And this inner dissonance is not just psychological, it's magnetic. Imagine trying to tune into two radio stations at once. You can't. One frequency will always override the other. The universe functions in the same way. It doesn't bring you what you say with your mouth. It brings you what your identity says is true. If you're trying to manifest love, but part of you still identifies as unlovable, the vibration of that hidden belief will cancel out the signal of your desire. If you're calling in financial abundance, but you still see yourself as someone who always struggles, the signal becomes noisy, fragmented, untrustworthy. And life doesn't respond to noise, it responds to clarity. This is why Hermstring warns us. If the version of you asking is not the version of you receiving, you will stay in the loop of delay. And many people spend years in that loop thinking they're doing something wrong. But the issue isn't the manifestation process, it's the identity you're using to run it. You can't attract a life you don't feel safe identifying with. You can't become someone new while secretly clinging to who you were taught to be. These old identities, often formed in childhood, or through trauma, or through years of rejection. They might not even sound like you. They might sound like a parent, a teacher, a partner, someone who once made you feel small. And even now their voice has become internalized. It shapes how you speak to yourself, how you limit your dreams, how you shrink your desires into something more reasonable. But your soul is not reasonable. It's radiant. It remembers your wholeness, and it wants you to remember too. To manifest from unity, you must begin to rebuild your self-image, not through surface affirmations, but through deep, energetic congruence. You must align the way you see yourself with the version of reality you say you want. If you want to receive love, you must embody someone who naturally attracts it, not someone who's always on edge, waiting to be left. If you want to be seen, you must first stop hiding from yourself. Hermstring calls this the law of identity coherence. Reality calibrates to your self-permission. You are not waiting for life to choose you. Life is waiting for you to become the version of you who is already chosen. That version of you is not in the future. She exists now, but she is buried under layers of stories, shame, and conditioning. To meet her, you don't need to strive, you need to release. Release the need to prove, release the urge to earn, release the idea that you have to become more before you're allowed to receive what you desire. You don't. You only need to align your inner mirror to reflect back to life the same truth you wish to receive from it. This is not about ego, it's about restoration, about reclaiming the pieces of your self-concept that were distorted by fear and realigning them with love. When you do this, your field becomes one signal, not many. And when that signal is clean, consistent, and complete, the things you desire can finally find you, not because they were far away, but because you were split. And now you are whole, them. You tell yourself it's because you're not doing enough, not visualizing hard enough, not vibrating high enough. But the truth, as Owen Hermstring reveals, cuts deeper than method or effort. He writes, "Manifestation begins in overflow, not in lack. You cannot call in something to complete you. If you do, you'll only magnetize its absence." It's a concept that seems simple, yet it shatters the foundation of how most people approach desire. Because most people are not trying to expand. They're trying to fill a void. This void is quiet, often invisible. It doesn't scream. It whispers in the background, making you believe that once you get the thing, the relationship, the money, the recognition, you'll finally feel safe, whole, enough. But Hermstring teaches that this kind of energetic architecture is flawed from the start. When your desire stems from emptiness, you are not creating. You are compensating. And compensation is not the same as creation. One is rooted in power, the other in survival. Think about it. If you are calling in love because you feel unloved, what is the signal you're sending? It's not love, it's "I am alone." If you're trying to manifest abundance because you fear poverty, you're not sending the frequency of prosperity. You're vibrating fear, and reality is obedient. It mirrors your true emotional posture, not your conscious wish. That's why Owen is relentless about this law. You will never receive to feel full. You will receive once you already are. It is not punishment, it is protection. Life does not want to feed your illusion. It wants to meet your truth. And the truth is, anything you try to attract in order to fix you will always expose the very wound you're avoiding. If you attract someone to prove you're lovable, they will eventually trigger your deepest insecurity. If you attract money to feel worthy, the moment it arrives, your fear of losing it will amplify. Why? Because the void is still there, and the external gain cannot touch it. Only self-recognition can. So many people chase manifestations thinking they'll heal the pain. But the healing doesn't happen when the manifestation arrives. It happens before it arrives, when you no longer need it to define you. Hermstring describes this as the shift from identity-seeking to identity expressing. You stop trying to get something to become someone, and instead you become someone who naturally expresses what they already are. And from that place, attraction becomes effortless. It becomes expansion. You're no longer trying to escape who you are. You're growing into more of it. But this requires radical honesty. You must ask yourself, why do I want what I want? Is it coming from fullness or from lack? From self-love or self-abandonment? Are you chasing an image, a role, a relationship that would finally make you feel valid in the eyes of the world? Or are you becoming a frequency that reflects who you truly are even without applause? Because when you desire from wholeness, the universe responds with generosity. When you desire from emptiness, it responds with delay, not to punish you, but to invite you inward. This is why so many manifestations fall apart once they arrive. They were built on a shaky foundation, on a hollow self-image. The person asked for something their nervous system couldn't hold, because they hadn't yet created the internal safety to receive it. But when you expand from wholeness, nothing feels overwhelming. You don't chase to be filled. You call in what complements you, not what patches your wounds. So take a breath, ask yourself, if nothing ever changed, could I still find peace here? Could I still honor myself, hold myself, and recognize my worth? Because that's the moment the field begins to shift. That's when the desire no longer feels like a scream, but a song, not a cry for help, but a quiet celebration of who you've already become. From there, everything changes. Not because you've finally earned it, but because you're no longer pretending to be broken in order to deserve something whole. You are whole, and wholeness is the frequency that calls in miracles, not to save you, but to celebrate you. There's a quiet way we push our desires further away without even realizing it. It doesn't happen through fear or even resistance. It happens through focus. A focus so fixated on what's not here that it drowns out what already is. Owen Hermstring captures it perfectly when he writes, "The signal of absence is louder than your intentions. If your attention lives in what is missing, that is the prayer the field responds to." This isn't metaphorical, it's energetic. Life responds to where you are, not where you want to be. And if your entire emotional life revolves around lack, you're not calling in your future, you're reinforcing your present. Every time you wake up and remind yourself of what hasn't arrived yet, whether it's love, abundance, healing, or recognition, you are unconsciously anchoring yourself in the frequency of absence. You might still be doing the visualizations, you might still be repeating the mantras, but underneath the routine you're emotionally tethered to a silent grief. Why is it still not here? That question becomes your vibration, and vibration is the only language the universe understands. Hermstring insists on this point, not to discourage you but to wake you up, because most people live in a state of silent waiting. They're waiting for something external to give them permission to feel good, waiting to feel excited, waiting to feel chosen, waiting to feel like it's finally happening. But the field doesn't activate based on anticipation. It activates based on presence, and presence can only be accessed now. Here's what most people miss. There is no future you who has it all figured out. There is only a version of you who lives so fully in this moment, so anchored in trust, that the future bends in her direction. That version of you doesn't dwell on what's missing. She doesn't obsess over the clock or compare timelines or track signs. She's too busy radiating alignment, and that radiance is magnetic. When your focus is on absence, you're training your nervous system to believe that something is wrong. And the more you repeat that belief, the more your body closes, your mind races, and your heart begins to brace for disappointment. That state is not neutral, it's repellent. Not because you're unworthy, but because your energy says, "I don't trust this," and if you don't trust it, you can't hold it. So the shift begins with radical presence, not fake positivity, not pretending, but learning to stop feeding the thought loops that whisper, "It should be here by now." Because the moment you say should, you've judged the now as unworthy. And the moment you reject the now, you disconnect from your power. Hermstring warns us, power is not in what you expect, it's in what you honor. If you cannot honor the present, the future has no reason to respond. This is the uncomfortable truth. The future is not something you wait for. It's something you summon through your relationship with the present. If you resent where you are, you will resist what wants to find you. If you ignore what's working, you amplify what's lacking. And if you only feel aligned when there are results, your alignment was never real. It was conditional. And conditional energy is fragile. It collapses under pressure. But presence, true presence, is indestructible. It is the state of someone who is already whole, already held, already enough. And from that state, desire becomes a soft expansion, not a scream for rescue. The future begins to feel like a natural extension of your now, not a distant prize to be earned. So breathe. Look around. What in your life today can you notice, appreciate, amplify? What emotion can you cultivate, not because it will attract something, but because it already feels good? That is the practice. That is the mastery. Hermstring puts it simply, your life doesn't change when the future arrives. It changes when you stop running from the now. This is not spiritual bypassing, it's energetic mastery. The presence you cultivate today becomes the signal that shapes tomorrow. And once you shift your focus from what's missing to what's unfolding, you'll realize the very thing you've been chasing has been circling you this whole time, waiting for your signal to get clear. There is a quiet betrayal we commit against ourselves, one that wears the mask of ambition, hope, or even love. It happens when we keep pouring energy into outcomes we were never meant to sustain, when we fight to hold on to stories that no longer resonate, when we beg for doors that were never meant to open. Owen Hermstring calls this energetic overcommitment. Your field becomes diluted when you force alignment with desires that are not authentically yours. You lose signal strength chasing what you no longer need. It sounds harsh, but it's true. You cannot become magnetic if your energy is scattered across timelines that no longer serve you. You might be trying to manifest something right now that once felt aligned, a relationship that once made sense, a career goal that used to light you up, a version of yourself you once thought you had to become. But time has passed. You've changed. And yet the commitment remains, not because it's true anymore, but because you've invested too much to let go. That's the trap, not the desire itself, but your emotional attachment to it, the identity you've built around getting it, the fear of who you'd be without it. And so you keep pushing. You keep visualizing, praying, scripting, doing all the right things, except one, questioning if this thing is still true for the version of you you've become. Hermstring warns that the cost of holding on to expired outcomes isn't just fatigue, it's distortion. Every time you say yes to a false desire, you say no to your true one. The field cannot deliver clarity to a divided heart, and most hearts are divided, not by malice but by habit, by old dreams we never gave ourselves permission to update. We grow, we evolve. But if our energetic goals don't evolve with us, we trap ourselves in outdated frequencies. You may be trying to call in a life you no longer resonate with, and that's why it doesn't come. Not because you're blocked, but because the universe won't help you build a reality that would shrink your soul. That's not rejection, that's grace. And here's the hard part. The desires you must release are often the ones you've told everyone about, the ones you've cried over, built vision boards around, and defended in the name of alignment. But real alignment doesn't require defense. It just feels right. And if something requires constant justification, emotional labor, or self-abandonment to pursue, it's not a soul desire. It's a coping mechanism wearing a crown. So how do you know when you're overcommitted to the wrong outcome? You'll feel drained instead of expanded, anxious instead of inspired. You'll feel like you're always chasing but never arriving. Your peace will feel conditional, only available if that thing finally happens. And you'll start to notice how much of your worth is wrapped around getting it. That's the invitation to pause, not to give up, but to reassess. Hermstring says it clearly. The right outcome expands you in the pursuit. Even before it arrives, it adds power to your field. But the wrong one, it depletes you, it distorts your boundaries. It keeps you locked in timelines that don't match your becoming. The longer you hold on to it, the more your energetic clarity dissolves. And clarity is the currency of creation. The most powerful thing you can do sometimes is let go of the outcome. Not because you've given up, but because you've outgrown the version of you who needed it. When you release what's no longer yours, your field sharpens, your intuition gets louder, your desires get cleaner, and life responds with swiftness, not because you finally got it right, but because you finally stopped forcing something that was never wrong, just no longer true. This is the hidden liberation behind Hermstring's work. He's not teaching you how to control reality. He's teaching you how to align with what's already yours by dropping the noise of what isn't. Once you reclaim your energy from the wrong outcomes, you'll find that the right ones never had to be chased. They only had to be recognized. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from rejection, but from delay, from waiting so long that your belief begins to rot, from waking up with hope for weeks, months, even years, only to feel like you're stuck in the same loop of almost. Owen Hermstring names this wound directly in The Law Behind the Laws when he writes, "Delay is not denial, it is calibration. But if you doubt during delay, you collapse the bridge before it's built." And with that single line, he explains why so many manifestations never arrive. It's not that they were impossible, it's that we quit on them too soon. When you don't trust the delay, you send a different signal. At first, you might have been vibrating with faith. You might have believed deeply, moved with confidence, and built your days around certainty. But then came the silence, the stillness, the nothingness. And in that silence, your nervous system began to panic. Your mind began to spin. Your energy shifted from "it's coming" to "what if it never does?" That shift, subtle but sharp, is enough to sabotage everything. Because energy doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your vibration. And the vibration of mistrust is heavy. It weighs down your field. It slows the delivery. Not because you're being punished, but because the field will not deliver to a signal that isn't steady. If your frequency flickers, if you oscillate between faith and fear, it doesn't matter how hard you work. The vibration becomes unreadable. The delivery stalls. Not because it's not on the way, but because it no longer has a clear place to land. Hermstring calls this field instability. It's what happens when your inner state becomes a storm of doubt, frustration, and self-questioning. You think you're doing something wrong. But the truth is more complex. Your soul is being stretched, calibrated, expanded to match the weight of what you asked for. And that process takes time. Not because the universe is slow, but because your container must be strong enough to hold what's coming. That's the part no one wants to hear. That sometimes the delay is not the problem, it's the preparation. Your desire is not just a wish, it's a frequency. And if your body, mind, and identity can't sustain it yet, the field will wait, not to hurt you, to protect you, because premature manifestation can be a curse. You can't hold what you don't yet believe you deserve. And you can't receive from fear what was born out of love. So what does trusting the delay really look like? It looks like continuing to walk, even when the road is invisible. It looks like showing up as if it's already done, even when your physical world gives you no proof. It looks like refusing to interpret silence as punishment, because the moment you assign meaning to the delay, maybe I'm not ready, maybe it's not meant for me, maybe I'm delusional, you begin leaking power. And every leak becomes a pause in your field. Hermstring says, the future responds to the certainty you hold during silence. That line is a lifeline, because it reminds you that delay is not the enemy. It's the test. It's the sacred space where your trust is purified, where your alignment is made real, not because things are working, but because you're no longer controlled by whether they do. When you reach that point, something shifts. Your energy becomes clean. Your signal becomes consistent. And the field finally can deliver. Not because you forced it, but because you proved you were ready, not with effort, but with embodiment, not with panic, but with peace. So take a breath. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the obsession with signs, confirmations, and arrival dates. Instead, ask yourself, who am I becoming while I wait? Am I still holding the frequency of my desire, or have I betrayed it in the silence? Because the ones who receive are not the ones who waited the longest. They are the ones who remained the clearest, especially when it was hardest to believe. Trust is the final bridge. If you cross it, what you've been asking for will no longer feel distant. It will feel inevitable, because you didn't just want it. You became the version of yourself who no longer needs proof to believe. And that is when it arrives. You don't need to force your way into the life you desire. You only need to become the version of yourself who no longer doubts it's already yours. Let go of the noise. Remember your wholeness and trust the timing. Alignment isn't waiting, it's becoming. If something in this message echoed through you, it wasn't by chance. You're remembering, you're rising, and you're not alone. Subscribe for more insights from Owen Hermstring and other teachings the world doesn't want you to hear. Share this with a woman who's ready to stop chasing and start becoming.